Hey guys, welcome back to today's video. Today is Thursday, November 6th, 2025, and just 2 days ago, the Virginia Democratic Party all but made the Virginia Republicans irrelevant in this state after a conclusive and decisive victory across the state's multitude of statewide elections ranging from governor to lieutenant governor to attorney general, as well as the House of Delegates races, at which the Democrats demolished the Republicans on every single level, sending the GOP into total irrelevancy in this state. Virginia is a state that we've been tracking for months on end, looking to the multitude of races that I just mentioned to see if there was at all an ounce of competitive nature when it came down to any of them. And what we saw on election night was the most conclusive victory for the Democratic Party that they have seen in this state for decades on end. To recap the election in the state of Virginia, the result that really turned heads was the governor's race when Abigail Spanberger, who had served in Congress for roughly around 6 years, serving in the United States Congress, ran for governor in 2025. And in that decision to run for governor, she was immediately seen as the Democratic Party's frontrunner and the slight favorite in the race. And she took that ounce of opportunity that was afforded to her, with her being in the advantage from the get-go, and turned it into something where she trounced the incumbent lieutenant governor across the state by roughly 15 points. But the extent at which the Democratic Party did well in Virginia is not contained strictly to the boundaries of the governor election. Simultaneously, Virginia elected the Democrat Ghazala Hashmi from the state assembly to run, or the state House of Delegates, or state Senate rather, to run for lieutenant governor against John Reed, to which she won her election by roughly 11 points. A pretty substantive margin, and one that showed it was a decisive victory for the Democrats in the state of Virginia. Ghazala Hashmi won when the margins were expected to be slightly closer. But the race the Democrats were holding their breath about wasn't governor, and it wasn't lieutenant governor. It was instead the attorney general's race, where Jason Miyares, the Republican incumbent, the only eligible Republican to run for re-election, decided he would seek a second term in 2025. And he ran against Jay Jones, who in the final month of the election at the very beginning of October saw leaked text messages that received a repudiation of support in opposition from many members of his own party, including Abigail Spanberger, who on the debate stage would not endorse Jay Jones after this scandal had developed and been engulfing the attorney general's race. But by the time the votes are counted, Jay Jones will go on to win by a larger margin than that of Vice President Kamala Harris in the state of Virginia, when she won that state by the second largest margin we've seen for Democrats in a while. And not to mention that, given the national circumstances, Kamala Harris's performance in Virginia in 2024 actually was the bluest Virginia has been relative to the nation in over 50 years. And so to see the attorney general's race, the one that Democrats were anxiously awaiting their returns in, called about an hour after poll closing, goes to show the results across the statewide races were phenomenal for the Democratic Party. But it also doesn't just end there. The state legislative races were ones where the Democrats also came into this not with apprehension, but optimism as to how many seats they could go on to win. The Democrats came into the race with roughly 51 seats. Democrats had reclaimed the majority in the Virginia House of Delegates, but it was a very narrow one, exceptionally thin, and the Democrats could only count on 1 or 2 vote defects if they were able to maintain this number and had won the governorship in 2025. But not only did they maintain every single one of their seats, Republicans did not flip a single one from the Democrats. In 2025, the election that took place 2 days ago, Democrats won a whopping 64 seats to the Republicans at 36, just 3 seats away from a supermajority in the Virginia House of Delegates. From a 1-seat advantage to now nearly a 30-seat deficit between the Democrats and the Republicans here, Virginia showed up and showed out for the Democratic Party in a tremendous way. And what we saw on election night was nothing short of a rejection of Donald Trump and what he is doing in the White House, that it extended to every walk of life in the state of Virginia. Whether governor, lieutenant governor, attorney general, House of Delegates, it doesn't matter how you cut it. The Democrats demolished the Republicans in the state. And so thinking about what this means governing-wise, well, we know the Democrats are in a strong position with a new governor, lieutenant governor, and attorney general. But what it also means is that there are absolutely national implications. Virginia's slim majority still passed a map and a decision that would rewrite the congressional boundaries in the state of Virginia from instead having Democrats at just 6 seats, but the possibility that Democrats after the next cycle could have 10 across the state, solidifying Democratic support in Virginia and condensing Republican support down just to 1. Now, the proposition to get this through passed through the Virginia House of Delegates a week ago. Now, it has to pass another round, but a lot more Democrats can hold out on this vote. The Democrats whipped every single one of their party members to vote in favor of the new map, essentially the new map, the decision to allow voters to make the new map. Now, they have such a comfortable advantage, there's no doubt in my mind that this is a guarantee that the new map not only goes to a vote, but given those numbers out of Prop 50, chances are it passes overwhelmingly. And not to mention, too, what we've seen, in the state of Virginia, as I've been mentioning, is an exceptionally strong performance for a political party that 4 years ago looked like they were not finding their pathway forward. You see, Joe Biden reset the playbook in 2020 when he won the state by the largest margin Democrats have seen since before the Civil Rights era. I mean, even Lyndon B. Johnson and his 1964 landslide victory could not find himself winning Virginia by the margin that Biden did. It was a red state since then, and even Obama's 2008 victory had Virginia at 6.3%. And so for Biden to win the state by double digits for the first time in generations, it meant something. But it did not give Democrats this comforting feeling because in 2017, Democrats did not win Virginia by as large of a margin as they did today. But this was the first sign of an impending blue wave in 2018. If a Democratic victory, walk with me, if a Democratic victory in 2017 of 9 points would eventually predict a nationalized victory of Democrats by 8 points, what in the world does a 15-point margin mean in 2026 based off these numbers a year prior? Right? If Abigail Spanberger is able to win this state by, such a comfortable margin and more votes are being tabulated and they are leaving out, Democratic votes in the state, what you're finding is that this is so substantial that right now you're at 14.6%. It'll probably be 15. What's to say 2026 is not a bigger blue wave than what it was in 2018? Now, obviously, these elections don't predict everything, and they shouldn't be used to that degree. I think that there are certainly valuable lessons to be learned from them, but I don't think that they are the end-all, be-all. But they certainly tell us something, and it certainly indicates that, one, Republicans will not be able to stop this impending new congressional map. So they can scramble across the country to try to get new maps redrawn, but at the end of the day, Virginia is going to meet that moment, and given the passing of Prop 50, chances are this is also going to pass too. And thinking about, again, what Spanberger's victory meant, look at this shift map, not relative to 2021 when the Democrats actually lost Virginia to Glenn Youngkin. You can see that in that race, 2021, Glenn Youngkin defeated Terry McAuliffe by roughly 2 points in the state. But this is a shift map from when Kamala Harris won the state by 6 points in 2024 relative to what it was on Tuesday. And what you'll find shouldn't shock you, but it should tell you all you need to know. Now, what we saw is that a lot of these elections counties shifted overwhelmingly in favor of Abigail Spanberger, and in some cases, by double digits. Fairfax County, a county Democrats typically rely on, but shifting from the 2024 presidential election, shifted by 12 points to the left. Chesterfield, the second largest voting county, 168,000 votes shifted 8 points to the left. Virginia Beach, 8 points. Loudoun, 12 points. Prince William, 16 points. Only 5 out of the 95 counties in Virginia shifted to the right. And even those that did, well, we can look, did so by extraordinarily narrow margins and have no more than 11,000 votes across the state. The rest, however, so substantial and super significant amounts of votes and vote share. You know, take this away, what we're looking at is that the number of votes here indicate that these most populated counties are seeing dramatic shifts. And this average shift line here, you're talking roughly 9 points relative to the last election. Well, what that would have meant on, the House level is nothing short of a miracle for the Democratic Party. If you were to, in fact, see a 9-point shift on the national stage, you would end up with Democrats at 237 seats in the House, even more than what they had in 2018. And what I think the 2025 election showed us was that sometimes you can gauge how an election might go. Except it happens not just because the polls said so, but because a special election in Virginia's 11th district that took place on September 9th, 2025. James Walkinshaw replacing George Connolly, who unfortunately passed away in this seat in May. The election was held, and Walkinshaw won a district that, sure, the Democrats won by 34 points in the last cycle, but this time he won by 50. A 16-point shift to the left. And while Abigail Spanberger did not shift the state by 16 points, some of these counties were damn near. And her margin relative to Kamala Harris's, you are talking again roughly a 9-point shift. That Virginia election didn't tell us everything, but it absolutely indicated that there is a set of enthusiastic voters who are willing to turn out and turn up against the Republicans in this state and across the country in general. Republicans failed on election night in 2025 in Virginia, and their party is likely going to be axed into oblivion. Because as much as Republicans believe that they have the authority and the ability to win back some of these districts and some of these states' boundaries, I'm not thoroughly convinced. And given that Virginia is likely to move forward with a new constitutional referendum across the state that would allow voters to make a decision around their congressional boundaries, I can guarantee it, based off what we're seeing with Prop 50, which passes by more than Kamala Harris's margin in the state, and Abigail Spanberger, and Ghazala Hashmi, and Jay Jones, all of them outperforming Kamala Harris's margin in 2024 is a tremendously good sign for Democrats in 2026, and in Virginia, puts this political party that holds the governorship, lieutenant governorship, and attorney general power right now into complete and total irrelevancy for the next 4 years. The Virginia GOP is cooked, and their margins here are nothing short of being trounced by the political party that they turned out of power 4 years ago. Because the circumstances of this race are very different than what they were in 2017. And Abigail Spanberger and the rest of these Democrats evidently met this moment. And across the state, in a sweeping set of victories, the Democrats completely turn around their status point in Virginia and expand on the political capital they already had tucked away in this state. And now we see the largest margin of victory for a Democrat in Virginia in generations, and one that completely outpaces and outflanks any type of mainstream Democrat in the past 60 years. And a result that will show Republicans, in Virginia at least, there's no place for them in office across the state, in the House of Delegates, and chances are in the congressional level. That is what is coming next. Democrats are set to redraw their boundaries, benefiting the Democratic Party nationwide and boosting their odds at victory across the state for many years to come. So thank you guys so much for watching this video. Make sure to comment down suggestions below. Subscribe on the left if you haven't already, and check out the Instagram and Twitter. At the bottom left of the screen, there's also a Discord server for you to go ahead and join. On the screen, there's a video for you to watch, and then a playlist for my 2026 House election analysis videos. Again, thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you tomorrow.